Altcoins are dumping a lot today, but what does this mean? Are we closer to the end than we think? Or is this a fabulous buying opportunity? I'm going to discuss that in this video. So we're going to look at some of the major altcoins and some of the important key levels that have been either hit or broken that actually gives us a really good idea on what could happen now over the next kind of 2 or 3 weeks. Because you have to think short term when it comes to trading. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button if you've been enjoying the content. Just a quick word on Bitcoin. As I mentioned in my last video, I think we're doing some sideways chop in a smaller way forward, and I think we might have one final push. And by the way, because of what I said in the last video, I think we are not a million miles away from the end. I think we're talking literally just weeks. But again, that's just my own personal opinion. Obviously, watch other videos. There's many ways you can look at this. I'm just saying that's probably the most realistic. And I've said in many videos over the last 6 to 12 months, a lot of the altcoins have topped. That is actually true though. That's not changed. And let me show you a few where there's key issues now. So the first one I want to show you is FET. So FETUSD. With this one, we saw a run from the April lows, which looked like a decent run. But now looking back at this price action from the 22nd of June lows, this is looking obviously very corrective. We had a nice breakout here and we were getting higher lows, but we've not sustained that. So if you zoom in on a 4-hourly, you can see quite clearly we're breaking down and this move is looking more and more corrective now. And if we take out like another key level here around 67, I would say it's highly likely you challenge these lows. And it's highly likely this move here was the entire move, and it was actually more of a kind of complex structure up, but a three-way move. So it could be actually on the way down. That's for FET. Remember, each altcoin is different. And before I discuss some of the other altcoins, this is a really important chart. This is total 3. So you can see here at the top, this is the crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin and ETH. And this is a really good chart for me to illustrate what I've been talking about over the last kind of few months or so. So you can see here we had a significant low in 7th of April and we're pushing up ever since. And we're back around the 1 trillion mark. But we've actually hit this mark a couple of times. We hit it at the first week of December when all the Dino altcoins were running. Then we hit it again toward the end of January, especially when Solana was running as well. And more recently, we've seen ETH going on a little bit of a run and breaking out. Now, if we zoom out here, so if we zoom out so that we can see the previous cycle, we can see that, again, just looking at basic Elliott wave, we've reached the same resistance levels we've had before at 1 trillion. And from the lows we saw in November, December 2022 on Bitcoin and all of the altcoins, we did already trace a nice looking 5-way move in my opinion. And we actually tagged the all-time highs, which is important from a structure point of view. And we hit around 1.14 trillion. Now, by the way, during this cycle, people had crazy targets for this total market cap. 2, 3, 4, 8 trillion. Nowhere near there. We're barely managing to touch 1 trillion. But that actually explains a lot here, because that explains why even in these recent pumps, like for example from March, the top here was 750. So how much as a percentage have we gone up since March 2024 when a lot of the altcoins first topped like FET and stuff like that? We only went up another 30-40% in January, and at the moment we're only 35% above last year's highs. So what is my point? My point is that will explain to you in your mind why out of the millions of different altcoins, only a few actually run and cause this little bit of a move. If they were all running like in 2021, so we zoom out back to December 2020 when everything was running, that's when we ran from 100 billion market cap and 10x. Everything was going up. This time not so. You have to be very selective. This total market cap explains that. So I hope that's clear. That's why when you look through this list, you'll see some altcoins that have done very well. And that illustrates my next point. So let's get back to a coin that I've discussed a lot recently, and that is Pangu. So when you go up vertical like this, you should expect deeper retracements. Because we're up, let's say from just the June lows, we're up 5x. Ridiculous amount. You would expect a correction that could easily go back to this support level here. So in terms of percentage, 35-40% correction is not weird even in a raging bull market. So keep that in mind. Just because we're having a dump on 10% of some of the altcoins doesn't matter. It does matter when you're getting 10 to 15% of a dump on things like FET. because that never did anything. It never even went up. So it's actually already near the June lows, if that makes sense. But these other ones that have gone up a lot, that's okay. That's okay. It's okay to stay bullish, have a bullish bias and stuff like this. Now, crude kind of structure look at this. Basically, that to me looks like it could be a 1, 2, 3. And then now we might get that little bit of chop like we're seeing on Bitcoin and hopefully some of the better altcoins. And then I think we might be able to do, again, I'm just thinking in the next few weeks or maybe August or something, we do that final move. And then in my opinion, I think that's it. Remember, a lot of the altcoins had already done here somewhere and before. When I say all done, I mean the final few to run. So that's Bitcoin and about 4 or 5 altcoins. That is all. And again, I'll discuss in this video which ones I think they are based on recent price action. So let's have a look at some others. Another one I discussed, a few weeks ago was Kito, which is again is a newer coin. It's one I was considering could do a good run because it had a really good move here. But this one I've kind of chalked off the list because why? Well, very clear. From these June lows, all looks very corrective now. Very choppy, very overlappy. It's broken important trend line support as well. Broken important horizontal support. And it looks like it's well on its way to challenge those June lows. So this is not a sustainable kind of low. Now, it's possible, smaller chance, it's possible it could just break this low, turn, and then run a bit. Yeah, it might do that, but then I think it's only really going to tag here. It's not going to do some crazy thing like Pangu did upwards. So I've chalked it off my list personally. By the way, as we go through, obviously I'm not discussing the completely crappy coins that never do anything like Sandbox and stuff like that. You can just basically ignore those, obviously. So this one, as you would have seen in my recent altcoin videos, I felt it was going to do a 3-wave move, which is known as a kind of ABC or WXY move. So far, it's traced that out. Now, I don't know from this point of view. What we need to see for basically, if this is it and it's done or nearly done, it might just have another kick up and then it's done. Then basically, this is all a parallel kind of corrective channel and it's heading back down. And that's kind of its bull market was done here in January. As I've explained, it's good likelihood that's possible. However, if it's to hold a higher support level here, preferably quite high, so its pullback stops at like, kind of 170s and it turns, then it's possible for a long enough bull market, which I don't think we have anyway, it could still do something. It's still possible. And I wouldn't rule it out. Honestly, it's getting hard now. Like it's getting less and less likely. And we've got less and less time. And it had that crazy run already from, where was it, $8 or so all the way to the top, which is 3,000%. I just think it's getting less and less likely now. Next ones we've talked about before, SUI. Again, this is one kind of like Kito. It looks slightly better chart, but again, not great. I think it's not really pushing on. And even this one, I would give it like a medium. If you wanted to score it, Pangu would be up there, 8 or 9 out of 10. This would be like more a 6. Kito would be like a 1 or 2 out of 10. FET 1 or 2, if you want to score it that way. Something like that. Tau, again, I think a little bit better, maybe a 7-ish and stuff. Hasn't really kicked on, but the chart's not really broken down as yet, I would say. So if that was indeed an impulse, and this is the beginning signs of an impulse, then we should get a pullback, and then we should kick on. We might get support on the trend line, I don't know, but then we should start going vertical soon. And if it doesn't and chops around, then you know your answer. It's done as well. XRP, one I always mention on the altcoin videos, is a dark horse, one I really like, one that did well for me this time. But with this one, got to start asking some questions now. So we tagged the highs in January, and these are now, of course, all-time highs. So if you zoom out onto a weekly, you can see clearly these are all-time highs. And you're asking yourself the question now, was that the third wave, fourth wave, and are we done? Have to ask yourself the question. So how do we kind of determine that? We'll get onto a 4-hourly. A couple of ways you can look at this. Either you can look at this as some kind of complex correction here, or maybe a triangle here as well, and then we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done. Or same thing again, like Bitcoin. It's hopefully going to do a pullback, kind of chop a little bit, and then do one final kick up, and we're done. But either way, I just don't think we're far away from the end. I could be wrong. I mean, the other way is you could zoom way out and say this is the beginning of the end, and you know, we're gonna go on for like the next 6 months and stuff and just kind of go up only. Again, I don't know, because you know, the chart doesn't tell me either way for sure. It just tells me that, again, we're just hitting the minimum requirements of these final few altcoins to kind of call it a day. That's all I'm seeing here. And remember, at the end of the day, the chart will give you the answer. If this pullback gets deep enough, then this isn't like kind of possible or tenable anymore. You know, if the pullback kind of gets back to 250s and below, there's no way you can make any of this still seem bullish. And if it starts taking out some of these lows here, like $2 and below, then yeah, you know, like, what are we talking about there? We're obviously done. Another one I'd mention, Hedera, so H-bar, had a really nice run. Looks like a 5-wave move, but again, we had this double bottom here, so this could all be upside down flat correction, A, B, C, before further downside. And if you do the fib levels here, you do get an exact 1.618. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're going upwards, so charts going up, and then we do a correction, sometimes you get a flat, A, B, and C. That's a flat, and then this is exactly 1618. I'm saying that's upside down now. So upside down, we were moving down. We got a flat up, back up, and then we're going to carry on down. Possible. Again, very hard to tell yet, but if we keep moving down, we don't want to get into this kind of price here that we saw 226. So we keep getting a little bit deeper. Again, it's looking highly likely that this was just the final phase of the kind of correction upwards. Jupiter's another one I traded because it started to get some legs as Solana was moving, but again, it's done that thing that you don't want. All it's done is just slightly tagged the previous highs and dumped. I mean, everything's dumping, I know, but it's looking very much like a 3-wave move. And if you do the fib levels, what you don't want is a kind of exact 1-to-1. And yeah, it looks like nearly exactly 1-to-1 relationship, which is one of the most common in a sideways correction. So what's my point? My point is the trend is down, and this is just a pause in the downward correction. So for example, we move down, we pause with the correction, move down, pause with the correction, and so on. This is just a larger correction before potentially moving down. And yeah, like I said, these are the slightly better charts I'm showing you. Obviously, all of the others are way, way worse. The only other decent looking chart is ETH, which had a nice pump, but again, we're going to get issues if this gets too deep. Is this just the same ABC but just a stronger looking one? 1.236, very common ABC level. So again, you know, something you have to be a bit nervous about. The hope is we go sideways around 3,800, you know, 35 to 3,800 level, and then we just do one final kick. Again, 10,000 ETH and stuff like that. I don't see it anywhere on the chart. Nowhere on the chart does it make sense, and nowhere does this whole move off the lows look bullish at all. And then we've got this extremely deep correction that wouldn't make any sense either. Nothing on ETH makes sense. Even all of these little scam pumps, they nearly always get faded. Won't be surprised if the same thing happens here, and it gets some sort of horrendous triple top. Like I said, I'm even surprised it's reached here. Don't know how. A lot of people have been saying the crypto markets are more manipulated than ever nowadays. And again, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that is true. Hype is the other strongest performer of the last few months. And this is a little bit trickier because it's a new coin. It's had a really good run from 8 all the way to 50. There's nothing on price alone that would make you say for definite, all right, it's broken down now, it's all done. Nothing at all I could say for sure. You're just looking at levels here. Some of the key ones are what we call wave 4 levels. So 37 here, and this point here, so at 39.7. These levels go, then yeah, there's a good argument we could be done with hype too. It doesn't matter if it chops around sideways. As long as it's holding these levels, it chops around sideways, it still has the potential to do another push, and that could still be very decent multiples. So in summary, what would I say? So number one, I would be open to the idea we're very, very close to a top and a chance that it could have happened. And for example, Bitcoin, if this is a 3, Bitcoin's doing a larger kind of correction already, and this final leg of the correction is actually the bear market. So just be open to the idea. If we get a lot of chop, sideways, consolidation, stuff like that, definitely start looking for longs and start buying the lows of the range, because that would be our final leg. Third point, if you are buying the lows of the range, strong coins only. Those are the ones that are going to do something. Again, I've been going on and on about this, but I will repeat that. If you don't do that, you'll get stuck in, like you saw FET there, did literally nothing in the last few weeks, while things like Pangu in literally just 2-3 weeks went 5x. Please think about that. Next point, just exit plan. And your exit plan doesn't need to be any weird fancy one that these YouTubers talk about. Exit plan is called sell. Hit sell. Sit on your hands after that and just watch. And even for now, personally, that's what I'm doing. I'm just watching now because I've gotten out near this kind of local top, so all good there. And I just watch. You just watch. And how do you know, by the way, it's local top? It's hard, but again, you get a lot of telltale signs. So again, you're usually on a much smaller time frame, like an hourly or 2 hourly and stuff, and you start seeing signs. You start seeing a lot of lower highs in place, impulsive moves down off the lows, support levels being broken, trend lines being broken. Sometimes you can see momentum divergences, many different things. You never know until you know. And then that's the thing about crypto. It could be vicious and, suddenly 3% drawdown turns into 10%, 20%, and so on. It's kind of like a cascade effect with all the leverage trading we have nowadays. Now, is this just a leverage flush and we're going to just V-bottom out of it? That's my next point to it. Possible. I prefer to sit on my hands and just keep an eye on it. How do you know, where's a good buying opportunity? Well, again, you look left, you look at important support levels we've seen before. For example, this is XRP. And then what you're looking at is once it bottoms, first thing you're going to see is you're going to see a push up and then you see a pullback, higher low. So that's the first thing you're going to see, a higher low than before. That's a good entry. And then what can happen is it could go up and then just fade and take out either your stop loss or you have a psychological one in your mind where you'll sell. And it's not the end of the world. That's a low risk kind of way to play it. The other way is you just wait a little bit longer, wait for consolidation and a couple of higher lows in place, and then you go in. And then remember, exit plan in place. If it just keeps fading that, then very likely we could be done already. Be very careful. Quick special mention on pump, which I again, check my channel, I discussed a while ago. This was pretty obvious for me that this was going to completely dump after that initial rise, and I discussed that on the video. But how do I know that? It's just TA. I've watched so many new coins launch, they all have the same chart. There's very little difference in the charts. You even look back years ago to things like Blur, the Ape coin launch, all of these new ones, Pangu as well, same thing, they all did this. But the only thing to watch, that's why I had special mention, is if it dumps so much, like it's already dumped 50%, let's say it dumps another 30-40%, all the way down here, so that's literally 90%. Some point that might be a good buying opportunity on a bounce alone or something a little bit more, but it doesn't matter. If you're a trader, just the bounce is enough. So at some point, wait for a bottoming process. Usually price kind of curves around like that. Let me just show you that with Pangu, and I'm just showing you again because it was just a really good trading opportunity. So you could see it here on Pangu. See how it curves around at the bottom there? That's what you're looking. Almost like sometimes you call it a cup and handle in terms of patterns. So from kind of the high point here, we were down 92%. And look at the time frames, January till beginning of April-ish. So we're talking a good 3-ish months there. So 12 weeks for it to fully bottom out, then good buying opportunity. And then from the lows there, this is obviously a special example. It did more multiples. But even if Pangu just did a bounce, it might do a 3x or 4x without too much trouble. Worth keeping on your watch list. So what do you think is going to happen? Comment below. Thanks for listening.